When we came back, uh, nicely tanned and feeling good about our vacation, uh, I found that there had been some changes made at the Forest House. Aranetta had installed another manager and made some changes which I knew would uh, really get in the way of having our guests enjoy the place. For instance, he had put in a time clock so that all the employees had to check in when they came in, punch their time clock, and punch out when they went out. Uh, that didn't make much sense for waitresses who came in at, say, 7:30 and left at 10:30 and came back for lunch at noon and left at 3 o'clock and then came back for dinner. When they were told they had to punch the time clock, they punched in but never punched out in between the off periods. He also didn't like the idea of workers riding up and down in the elevator. He said they should use the steps. He had changed the dining room and kitchen so that a Chinese chef and his staff were providing meals instead of Irwin. That meant that our guests got Chinese food for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It didn't seem possible that that could possibly work. So when I spoke to the new manager about this, he said, well, you don't have to worry because you're being let go anyway. So we'll give you 2 weeks notice and then you're gone. Well, I was a little surprised, but not really surprised, and not too unhappy. So that I knew that my work at the hotel would be finished in 2 weeks. I said that I would help him when they had a set up for the next GE meeting, and also there was a wedding due, I think it was a June wedding, and I had promised them certain things and they had agreed to pay a certain amount, and it was a pretty good deal, so I said I would help him with the plans for catering the wedding. It was a doctor and his wife who had a home on the North Lake shore, and their daughter and her beau were going to get married at the hotel, and I hoped we could carry it off. At any rate, before I left, GE came in to set up for another motivation workshop under Bob Harper, and the audio-visual man was there. He had brought easels and other material that Bob Hopper would need for running the workshop. And he said something about, I heard a rumor in the kitchen that you're leaving. I said, yes, I've been fired. And he said, I guess the man who owns the place now doesn't know what he's doing. What are you going to do now? I said, I don't know. I didn't know I was going to sell the hotel. I thought I was going to work here for a year or so, but that obviously was not in the cards. So I don't know what I'm going to do now. I haven't planned for it. He said, you know that workshop that you took a few months ago? I think it was last December. I said, yes, that was the workshop with Bob Hopper, the motivation workshop. And he said, I've heard that they're looking for instructors for that course. And since you've taken it, if you liked it, and if you'd like to be a possible instructor, I suggest you call Bob Hopper and speak to him about it. I said, wow, that sounds like a very good idea. I love that course, and I felt very comfortable taking it. I'll give Bob a ring. So after he left, I went to the phone and called Crotonville and asked for Bob Hopper, connected to him, and I said to him, I was just told that you're looking for instructors for the motivation workshop. I said, I enjoy taking that program, and I would love to join your staff if you think I'm qualified. He said, you've graduated, you have a college degree? I said, yes. He said, well, we observed you taking the course, and we were surprised at how good you seem to absorb the information that we put out. I'd love to have you as an instructor. I said, well, what do I have to do? He said, well, you have to come here and take the course over again as my assistant and go through it again, and I'll give you points on what to emphasize and how to deliver it. And in a week's time, you could be ready to lead the program. I said, that's great. I'm amazed, and I feel very good about it. He said, do you want to know what we pay for that? I said, no, I really don't. I want to do it. So why don't I come down and watch you and help you lead the next program? He said, okay, when will that be? He says, I'm running one here at Crotonville starting next Sunday afternoon. We start the program on Sunday and finish on Friday. I said, what time should I get there? He said, anytime after 3 or 4 o'clock. We start with the group at the 5:30 open bar session, and then the program starts after dinner about 7:30 and continues to 9:30. Okay, I said, I'll see you on Sunday. And I hung up and went to tell Babe about it. I mean, I was simply amazed, because there's nothing I would have rather done than start working for GE and leading this program. The timing was all right because this occurred more than 2 weeks after I had said that I would stay for 2 weeks before I left. So it was probably a month after that that this occurred with GE and Bob Harper. At any rate, I went to Crotonville on that Sunday and checked in, got a room. They had four. They had rooms for four with 2 bathrooms. In other words, there was a set for 4 people sharing 2 bathrooms, and they had 25 of these, so they could accommodate 100 guests. The room I had, the quad that I was in, was empty except for me and Bob Harper. There were nobody joined us. And we went through that week with me learning a lot about the program and seeing how Bob Harper presented it in front of a live audience. I had seen this when I went through it, but now he had time to explain to me his reasons for emphasis on some parts, and going through slowly, giving people time to think about it, about what he was presenting, and actually it was like leading a seminar rather than giving a lecture. And I really got the idea of how the program should be run. When Friday came and Bob said, well, that after the students left, he said, that's the motivation workshop. How'd you like it? And I said, it was great. He said, do you think you could lead one? I said, yeah, I think so. He said, that's good because next week you're working. Bill Abood, who's, he and his brother John have been running motivation workshops, and he's one of my better instructors, and you and he will lead the next workshop, and that starts next week, next Sunday, and it's going to be right here at Crotonville. So this is Friday. You have the weekend to think about it and start being an instructor on Sunday. I found out during the week that my salary for the week would be $1,000, and I thought that was more than I expected, and I was quite happy with it. You understand, I wasn't working for GE. I was signed on as part of the adjunct faculty, and I would only get paid when I worked. So if I worked a week and got $1,000 for the 5 days, that was fine. Then I might work another week, or I might be off for an extended period. When he needed me, he would call, and actually we would set up weeks in advance so that I know when I would be working. Teaching with Bill was a real pleasure. he was very easy with the group, very comfortable standing in front of them and leading the motivation workshop. For me, it gave more insight. This was now the third time I had gone through with the program, and I was feeling very comfortable in doing my half with Bill Aboud doing the other half. On Thursday of that week, I got a call from Bob Harper and asked me, well, what are you doing next week? I said, I'm free. He said, no, I really need you because I have several workshops. I'm doing one, and I'd like you to do the other one. I said, where is it going to be? And he told me it was in Connecticut, just across the border from New York. So it'd be an easy ride. And oh, by the way, he said, you'll be the lead instructor. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, the man who's going to be your partner, Bob Donahoe, has been working for GE for 25 or 30 years, and he has taken this program, and we're starting him out, but he has never led a motivation workshop, so he's going to look for you to have all the answers in case he doesn't. You've been through it 3 times now, and I really like the way you got a hold of it, and I'm sure you can do the job. Is that okay with you? Another week starting Sunday? I said, okay. If you I didn't expect to be working so often, but I'm available and happy to do it. So the next Sunday came around, and I drove up past Danbury to a small town in Connecticut, and got ready to run the workshop. The next morning, I came into to the group, and they were all seated at long tables, 3 to a table, and there were 20 people. And at one of the tables, the second one in, there was one gentleman who was had a newspaper up in front of him, and he was reading the paper when I started the program. I say I started the program, I said, good morning. I said, whatever his name is, I don't remember now. Would you mind putting down your newspaper? It's very hard for me to start a program without all 20 of you ready to begin with me. And reading a newspaper isn't going to do it. He put down the newspaper, but didn't look very happy about it. And I said, well, before we start, let's see if we're all aboard. Can you tell me why you were reading the newspaper, why you had it up in front of you? He said, well, I'll tell you. I just got a notice from GE that after 20 years on the job, I'm being let go, and they don't have another place to send me. I have no position. First of all, this is unheard of because GE seemed to have a policy that once you joined, you never were let go until you died or you reached 65 and were ready to retire. So this came as a blow to this man. And he said, I'm really shocked. I haven't heard. They didn't tell me that I did bad work. They just said, we don't have a job for you. We don't need you. And we're going to let you go. However, we'll notify all the plants at GE that you are available, and if anybody needs somebody, they'll let us know. So he said, and then they said, while you're waiting, why don't you go and take this program? We'll pay you to take the program. But I'm not very happy about being here. I said, well, thanks for telling me about it. And let me tell you something about the motivation workshop. Whether you stay on with GE or not, we have an interesting program that is going to explain to you what makes people either motivated or demotivated on their work, on the time that they're working. Now you're starting off as completely demotivated as anyone could possibly be. But if you open your mind and listen and think about it, you may get some ideas that'll help you after this week is over. Either you'll be with GE or you'll get a job someplace else, but you'll gain some information and understanding about being motivated or demotivated. Could you buy that? He said, yeah, that makes sense. I said, okay, gang, I think we're ready to start. And I began the week's work on the motivation workshop. I'm glad I took that time, because if I had tried to work through that, it would have been a chaotic situation. And there I was, the first time I'm leading a program, and I come up with a problem like that. Anyway, the way things worked out, on Wednesday, this man got a call offering him another job in another location when he was finished with this week's program that he was studying. So he was happy, and the other 19 people were happy, and we got terrific reviews on our program. At the end of the Friday session, we handed out sheets to all of the people in which they spoke about, they filled out the forms which, first of all, talked about the program and what they liked and what they didn't like, and how they graded us on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the best and 1 being the worst. And we got all 10s. And that was, I was absolutely astonished, because I wasn't sure how it would come out. And the 2 instructors were graded on an A, B, or C, A being very good and C being the worst. B was fair and C was not completely understandable, something like that. Anyway, we got all tens, mostly all tens, and the two instructors were rated A. So I was very, very happy with my first workshop. At any rate, I didn't work the following week. I got a couple of weeks off. I got a call from Bob Hopper saying if I was available, he could use me. I think the next place was at Saratoga, and I was working with different people at each of these sessions. Bill Abood wasn't there, and Bob Dennehy was working elsewhere, and Bob Harper was evidently training new instructors, and including some women. Up till this time, there had only been men instructors, but GE was trying to get workshops run by women as leaders. At any rate, I went to different locations with different instructors as partners, and in most cases found that they were fine, easy to work with, and were good leaders. I did workshops in, as I said, in Saratoga, which was a lovely place to work because it was in a park in a nice old building with wonderful food. I did a workshop up near Albany and Erie, Pennsylvania, where I worked with Jay Juchter, who was Joanne Juchter. That was her first workshop, and I was her first co-leader. She had a PhD and was an excellent instructor. From there, I went all over the country, from Appalachia to Chicago, and as far as the West Coast. And those going out to California was a pleasure. And after the first workshop, I arranged for Babe to come out and meet me on the weekend, and then we spent that weekend and the following week touring parts of California. So she got some pleasure and the fun of that experience. I worked all over the state, including Santa Cruz, staying at a Holiday Inn there, and I mention that because we went there quite often, and it was a good place to work, and Santa Cruz was a lovely town. A funny thing happened though one time. I got out there on Sunday, and our program really didn't start till Monday morning. We just said hello and greeted the group and planned to start the program at 8 o'clock on Monday. The only problem was that the films that were supposed to be sent and that we used integrated with the lectures and the meetings hadn't arrived. And I found out that when I called Crotonville that they had been sent out a day late and wouldn't be there until Tuesday. So we had to do Monday without 3 or 4 of the films that we normally showed the people and then discussed with them. That was kind of scary because I had to improvise. Instead of showing a movie to get the point, I had to tell them what the movie would show and then integrate that with the rest of the program. However, that worked out okay. But let me tell you that I sweated bullets thinking about how to do it. Anyway, Babe was invited by me to come and join me after most of these sessions, and we often took the following week for exploring California. So with the sessions I ran out there, and the time we took for our week's travels after each of these session motivation workshops, we got to see the whole state of California from the bottom to the top and a little inland. So that was an added benefit to enjoying doing this workshop. On one of my trips back to Crotonville, I had an appointment to see the 2 men who had designed a program called the Management Practices course. And they asked me, first of all, let me say that my reputation was pretty good because of my success in running the motivation workshops. And I was asked if I wanted to become a leader of this other program called Management Practices, MPC, Management Practices course, which was required of anybody going from a technical job to a managerial job. So the idea was to give them some understanding of what it takes to manage other people and how to do it effectively. Now, running motivation workshops was using up about maybe 15 weeks of the year for me, and running MPC would take up another 10 or 12 weeks, which suited me fine. First, what I had to take the course and then discuss with the 2 men who had designed it the emphasis and ideas that went into each of the discussions that took place during the 5 days that the course took. I found that this was not as interesting, that is, it wasn't exciting to me as the motivation workshop, but still there were parts in it that I thought were useful and helpful to new managers. And I was happy to have the additional weeks to fill out my off time. So that's how I started on another program. at the same time, what I really was interested in and wondered if I had any chance of getting the opportunity was to lead the workshop that Walt Story had designed, and where I had seen him at the hotel delivering a Wednesday night talk. This was the interpersonal communication workshop, also known as ICW. So one day I made an appointment to see Walt, and by this time we were friends, and I think we even had played some tennis together because we belonged to the same club, and he played fairly well, but I was not as well as I did, and he enjoyed playing with me. When I saw him, I told him about the joy I had in leading the motivation workshop and some of the things in there that I thought was very interesting. And I said, from what I hear, into ICW would be another course that I would love to lead. And he said, yes, why? I said, well, you do some of the things that we do in the motivation workshop, but you seem to go to a greater depth, and people come out of that program with a better understanding of themselves and how they appear to the people that they're working with, and what they do that's useful, and some things that they do which are a hindrance to their relationship. He said, well, that's exactly what we do. The only thing is, I can only hire people that have a doctorate's degree in business psychology. And do you have that degree? I said, no, I just have a bachelor's degree. And he said, well, they've told me that I can't hire anybody unless they have a PhD. I said, why is that? He said, well, people coming to this program are often feel very frightened at having to attend this course, because they were told that there's something wrong with them. They don't get along with people too well, and they can't stay in their present job unless they do something to help this situation. In other words, they either get well and fixed, or else they are fired. Well, this was pretty scary to them, and a lot of them came into the program practically trembling. At least in their minds, they were very nervous about taking the program. In other words, they didn't choose to take the interpersonal communication workshop. They were being sent there, and they thought that either I'll be fixed at the end of this week or I'll be fired. And that was a pretty frightening situation. Also, at that time, GE had a new general manager by the name of Jack Welch, and his goal was to take a company that had too many people working there and get rid of the dead wood and have a sharper, easier company to run and manage. As a matter of fact, in the first 5 years that he was there, he pared General Electric's workforce from 400,000 to 300,000. In other words, 1/4 of the workforce was being fired or let go, and these people knew it. Everybody knew it, that Jack Welch was there to trim the workforce. So that was another thing that made them worry about being sent to take this interpersonal communication workshop. So Walt continued by saying that in his experience, people came in to the program with strange maladies like sore backs, headaches. After a day or two, some of them had to be sent to the hospital. So that's why he was so concerned about having people with PhDs leading the program, because if anything happened as a result of these people freaking out, at least he could say we had qualified instructors running the program. And he did have wonderful instructors there. Joe Luft of Joe Harry Window was one of the instructors. Houston Smith, who had written a book on religion that had sold over 2 million copies, was one of the instructors. And several others who were well known and had good credentials. So I had to bow out and say, okay, if anything changes, I'm still available.